I keep seeing on LinkedIn people talking about the perfect outbound cadence. Now, for me, this is really, really interesting. In fact, it actually points to something that's affecting our industry quite deeply. You've probably received them yourself, and I know a lot of people talk about it on LinkedIn. This idea of cadences, particularly the combination of email and LinkedIn. Now, I just want to spend a moment or two talking about cadences and how they're actually affecting the industry of outbound selling. As I'm sure you're all aware, there is now technology available that allows you to build out a series or a sequence of outbound messages to a specific client, contact, or email. Now, this is great, right? In the sense that you have the ability to slowly drip feed through the content that you want to the recipient and ultimately engage them and nurture them during that journey. Here's the problem, is that salespeople are using this in a very ineffective and ultimately quite destructive way. This has given salespeople the ability to fundamentally send out spam in mass. Now, this is being reflected through the opinions and the thought pieces by people receiving the information. It's very interesting. Now, I've spoken about this on LinkedIn a fair bit, and I've been quite vocal about the importance of actually crafting a personalized message and ultimately hitting the key notes that are going to resonate with the person that you're sending the outbound message to. But there's one flaw that for me is more important, and that is the delivery mechanism of getting across your number one asset. The biggest asset you have in sales, believe it or not, is your personality. People aren't sold to through email typically, and this is actually reflected in the statistics. The majority of sales actually start with an outbound call versus an email, interestingly enough. Now, this doesn't mean that marketing is not important. Obviously, marketing is incredibly important. But the key thing here is, how do we get across our personality? So let's talk about the perfect delivery mechanism for getting your personality across. I think in joint first place, it's either sending a video explaining what you do, getting across your personality, make it interesting, engaging, fun, or even funny for that matter. It's a very effective way of getting across your point of view and allowing your personality to shine through. And depending on the statistics that you read, we know that there's a very high open rate for videos as well. In some cases, up to 30% of videos are being opened. Now, this is really interesting because it gives us the ability to, first of all, put a name to the face, second of all, get across our personality, but lastly, articulate our message with absolute clarity and nuance. Joint in first place, I'd say, is the telephone. Now, with all the white noise that's going on email at the moment, it's worth noting that the telephone may even be perceived as a sort of antiquated blast from the past. And in some cases, CEOs are explaining that they get far less calls than they used to, and more of the outbound communication coming from the salespeople is through email. This is about differentiating the way that you approach customers. Then in last place, I'd say you've got email or LinkedIn outreach. This is the worst way of getting across your personality. And this for me is the most fascinating part of all, is that I receive an email in a sequence, no telephone call, no video. And then 2 or 3 days later, I receive another email. And then 2 or 3 days later, I receive another email or a message in my LinkedIn. And these salespeople keep relying on the single worst way of getting your personality across, through email. And when that fails, they turn to email again. And when that fails, they turn to email or the written word again. Remember, the very best way of getting your personality across is through video, voice note, or telephone. Make sure you're using those as your fundamental first step in your outreach. Hope this has been useful. Not knocking anyone. If you want to use sequences, that's fine. But just to give you a tip, I know when I'm in a sequence and I very rarely respond. Good luck and happy selling.